Yeah, it's streaming.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, members, officers, guests. Thank you for being here at our Town Centre Revival Committee tonight. We have 7 items on our agenda to go through, including a couple of presentations. I should just say at the start of this meeting that this is being recorded and streamed live onto the Council's YouTube channel. We are not in control of the live comment section, so please, if you are using that, be considerate of others. If you are not speaking, can I ask that you place your microphones on mute? And as ever with members, we will be recording our votes verbally. So when it comes to the recording of a vote, I will ask you to unmute yourself and we will record your vote accordingly. There are no apologies for absence. Agenda item 1, we are a full house of standing members to the committee this evening. The second agenda item is declarations of interest. Do I have any member with a declaration of interest? No member is indicating. Thank you, members. Agenda item 3 is the minutes and the confirmation of the minutes held on the 23rd of July. Are there firstly any matters arising from the minutes from members? No one is indicating, in which case can I ask members to unmute themselves as I will go round and ask for a recording that I can sign the minutes as a true record of the 21st of July meeting. Councillor Harrison?
In favour.
Councillor Burton-Sampson?
In favour.
Councillor Headley?
Agreed.
Councillor Henry?
Agreed.
Councillor Mackenzie?
In favour.
And I vote in favour as well. So the minutes are carried unanimously. Thank you, members, for your indulgence there. The next agenda item is the Town Centre Regeneration Strategy. I will shortly hand over to Tomasz, Matt and the team to introduce a presentation. The report is following on from the committee's approval back in May and then again in 2020 for the regeneration strategy to be brought forward for approval. So I'm going to hand over to Matt, and then once we've had the presentation, we'll open this up for questions and debates from members. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, just want to check that you can all see that okay. I'll assume you can. Okay, obviously we've sent through the regeneration strategy to you. Hopefully you've all had a chance to have a look through that. This presentation will just give a quick overview of that, also sort of touching on some of the guidance notes and how that might look in the future. Yeah, by all means, afterwards we'll take any questions. So executive summary, just to reiterate, this is again picking up on what was said at the last Town Centre Revival Committee. So the purpose of the Regen strategy is to guide and facilitate the Basildon's future growth appropriately and sustainably. So the reason for the change, pre-application discussions are underway with 4 landowners in the town centre, which covers a large portion of the town centre area. So there is now a need to provide a strategic direction for those considering investing in the town centre in the short term ahead of formal planning document being approved. So we talked last time around the timing of this becoming a planning document and that being tied to the timescale of the local plan. So this strategy provides an urgently needed vision to demonstrate council expectations as sites are coming forward right now. So the intention is to still provide planning policy to cover this in the future. That's not that doesn't get negated by this, but this revised strategy is a simpler, more coherent document with a range of appended guidance notes on a range of topics for developers and investors, and I'll come to those at the end of this session. Okay, so before we go on, obviously I'm not summarising what's in the strategy itself. Hopefully you've had that. You've had a number of presentations on that as it emerged in the past, but I just thought it was worth just touching on some of the benefits just of that plan. So obviously we've split these into 4 areas in the economic area. So we've got 4,700 square meters of new workspace, over 5,000 new jobs, repurposed and refocused retail space. In terms of housing, up to 4,200 new homes with mixed tenure, up to 31% of those homes at affordable tenures and safe and secure places. Community and culture, it brings with it an enhanced cultural venues and new creative businesses, revitalise public realm with new greenery and biodiversity, new community and health spaces. And in transport, carefully considered parking provision, new station arrival and public space, and new facilities for walking and cycling. So the recommendations, just to be clear about those before we start, that the committee notes the consultation feedback on the draft town centre master plan, and obviously we've sent that through as a separate report. That the committee approves the town centre regeneration strategy, also appended as a separate report, and that the committee delegate the agreement of the web-enabled guidance notes with the chairman of the town centre revival committee and the chief executive as the chair officer of the town centre delivery group. So, summary of the consultation. As you all know, this is split into two distinct phases. Stage one was our kind of information gathering stage, which involved engaging with stakeholders, a walk around the town centre, two town square events in December. And from that was information gathering, and then from the feedback that we received from the public, this was developed into a master plan with sustainability and community at its heart. And then we entered a very different phase. So stage two of this was presenting back that master plan after the work was undertaken. Obviously, the pandemic had taken hold at that stage, and no face-to-face consultations were run due to COVID-19. But a whole range of webinars for public and stakeholders and partners were held, and an accessible prospectus was developed for that. So just on the numbers, a total of 6 people visited the dedicated website, and 683 contributions to the second stage of the consultation were registered. On the feedback, obviously there's a full report on this, and there's a range of detail here. I just thought I'd include some of these figures. Obviously, we've already said that this was broadly positive. It ranges in terms of the topics. As you can see here, there's some real strongly agreeing to various things like improving the bus and train station, and agreeing that streets and space should be improved for cycling and walking. 55% support new homes in the town centre, which is lower than some of the others. So that gives us a view about what that is. Actually, the lowest support that we received was in relation to new homes in the town centre, was in relation to rationalising of parking to free up some of that space for new homes, and it was also in relation to providing new affordable homes. So there's feedback that we've received in that regard. And how have what have we done with that feedback? So hopefully on the report from We Made That, you'll see how each of those comments have been looked at and grouped into themes and have been dealt with, and have been there's reference to where this is dealt with within the documentation if we feel that there was a need to change what was already in there. So these are just 4 examples. The report's obviously got more on these, and all of those are included in We Made That's appended report. But just to give you an update, there's something further that we've actually developed in the last few weeks is actually what we want to do is actually produce a Basildon response on all of these key themes that have emerged in the consultation. Now, this is a bit more detail beyond the responses in the plan itself, including what our rationale is in a bit more detail for some of these things, but also really importantly, providing links to other relevant documentation such as the local plan, the IDP, the Essex Design Guide, where some of these other things are referenced actually. So that is something I was hoping to be able to say that is live on the website tonight. However, we're just getting a bit more information in relation to the fire safety aspect of this with some of our colleagues. So our aim is that this will go live on the website by the end of the week. So hopefully that will be there and you'll be able to see our response on all of these key themes. And just to highlight, obviously part of this, I think we said before, was an art competition. And look at these fantastic entries here. These are the 3 winners that we've had. You've seen some of the other amazing entries as well as we've gone through this presentation, but these are the 3 winners. And actually, my understanding is that there will be a presentation soon, and they will be winning some Smiggle vouchers. So, you know, thanks for the contribution. It's been brilliant and really fun to look through that and judge those entries. Christine, our head of planning, was one of the judges on that panel. So yeah, good work there. Okay. Right, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the guidance notes now. So just to be really clear, the new strategy is not a planning document. So sections have been removed which could be interpreted as planning policy throughout the document. So, i.e. some of the detail that we originally had on access, open space and active frontages is actually now to be taken out and presented as practical developer guidance within the appended notes. These interactive guidance notes will be live and they'll be evolving. So there'll be documents which will remain relevant and usable for the duration of the strategy's delivery timescale, i.e. 10 to 15 years. So we don't want something that goes out of date with new legislation. So the guidance notes themselves are being produced as part of the emerging delivery work managed by the Town Centre Coordinator. So they're happening now. And our aim is that the notes will be ready for review and ratification at the end of the year. So we're aiming for November. I'm hoping that we can bring them back to the November Town Centre Revival Committee. And just so you understand how they will work, the thing will look something a bit like this. We want to try and keep the branding, keep this a coherent kind of vision. But each of these areas will have a separate area that the developers and investors can click into. So activity and movement, you can go into that area and you can see these subheadings. So walking, cycling, public transport, etc. Go into that and it will provide an amount of detail for each and every one of these sections. So again, this is a work in progress at the moment. We'll be finishing this in the coming months, but this is just to show you how it will work and what it will look like and how it will feel. Okay, thank you. That's the end of my quick tour on that. I'll stop sharing my screen and ask for any questions.
Thank you.
To say, we have our design team with us as well, and obviously Tomasz is on the call, so hopefully we can cover your views.
Thank you, Matt. Members, I'm going to open this up to each of you if you wish to come in on that. The recommendations 1 to 3 are on the face of the report as well. So do I have any member who is indicating and wishing to speak? Councillor Headley.
Yeah, I did raise the hand during the presentation. Can I just, on a point of clarity, one of the very early slides shown indicated that the number of flats would be 4,200. Is that not a bit disingenuous, given that the figures for the Eastgate, potential Eastgate development, are approaching 4,000. The Orwell site was just short of 500, and that doesn't include the Marks and Spencer site or the other sites along where the back of the cinema. So can anybody give us a rough idea of the total number of flats that are likely to be built in Basildon through the progress of this reimagination of Basildon?
Thank you, Councillor Headley. Christine, you've indicated there.
Yeah, I mean, Eastgate isn't anywhere near 4,000. The application is currently with us in outline form, and it's come in at 2,800. So it's not 4,000. We have got the Orwell application is in at 492. So those ones are in with us at the moment. we're expecting Marsden's to come in around 450, 500. And then there's other various applications that are pending. We have made an estimate of the potentials number of houses that could be, or units that could be developed within the town centre over the next 15 years. And that is nearly 5,800, but it's over a 15-year period. These are not going to appear all overnight, and these will take account of land like Great Oaks, where we've got the Blues and Twos currently. It will take account of some quite far-reaching car park spaces, and also some land which we haven't previously looked at. So that will take some of the land that currently is occupied by highways, where obviously we're looking at some work around reduction of the highway spaces. So actually the figure we're working on in terms of the what we've told the planning inspector in terms of our urban capacity is about 4,800 units. So anything else we would be considered, we'd have to look, would be part of the town centre, but it would come in the later phase of the town centre. Has that answered your question?
Thank you, Christine.
In part, but I think the numbers, you're saying these are over a 15-year period, and you keep talking about houses. Do you, in actual fact, I think that you refer to them as units. So we are talking about flatted development, not housing as the people on the waiting list might recognise.
Can I just come in and say that's not totally true what you've just said there, in the sense that there are houses that are coming forward. For example, car park 14, there will be a detailed proposal that will be coming forward in the weeks to come. We're looking to get planning applications on that site, which, as this committee knows, is a site that we've been working with Homes England on to look at acquiring. So it is not the case that it is all flats in the town centre. There is a mix of residential there. And the other thing to say is that where we're going with this is that we are building in flexibility and agility into this master plan, into this regeneration strategy master plan when it is adopted alongside the local plan, so that things can change. And one of the things clearly is that when you look at some of the plans that are coming forward, and as Matt's presentation has shown there, around 4,700 square metres of workspace, office space as well. So it is not simply just the case that these units will be residential accommodation. There will be a mix of both houses, both flats, and of course trying to attract some of our businesses back into the borough and new businesses as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, Leader, you appreciate that the car park 14 is not within the purview of what would be recognised as Basildon Town Centre. And in fact, the previous administration had discussions with Homes England about that site with Sempra Home. So this is not a new development. That's a very old development. But if you're saying...
I would just on that particular issue, yes, I would absolutely include car park 14 in the town centre, because it is located in the town centre. And of course, the difference is, instead of talking about some of this stuff, we're actually doing this stuff now and getting it over the line. So there is a marked difference there, but I'm not quite sure how we would not include car park 14 in the town centre, given that it is located in the town centre. So let's just correct that from the start. Councillor Headley.
Well, thank you for putting me right. I mean, I've only lived in the district for 40 years. As a resident that isn't in the district, I find that surprising that you think that Lee Chapel's in the town centre. But we'll gloss over that.
We will, because there's
the other point that
if you want to play politics and if you want to be personal on this call, Councillor Headley, I understand that that's what takes place in Conservative group rooms, but it isn't what's going to take place here. So let's be factual.
It's not a question of playing politics, Leader. And with respect, I didn't interrupt you. So I think, in terms of my group's attitude to this is, yes, something desperately needs to be done about the redevelopment of Basildon generally. That's why we undertook massive developments on Craylands estates. And I think one of my other questions will be in terms of the officer capacity. We have a very good planning team and building control team, but they're very small. So I would ask, is there any ambition to increase the number of people engaged in building control and in planning with the appropriate qualifications and competencies to deal with projects that are much beyond the scope of anything they will have seen in the last 15, 20 years. And in fact, if you look at the number of high-rise flats that are being demolished around the country and the reports of how badly built they were and the failures of building control to adequately police and inspect those during construction, I think this is something that needs looking at before building starts. So perhaps officers could clarify whether they intend to expand the particularly building control that will be needed for at least, I think the head of planning mentioned a 15-year development period.
Okay,
So,
I'll bring Tomasz in a moment on that, and to talk about capacity and resource across the whole growth agenda. Let's just clear one or two things up. Firstly, you've made a comment there, Councillor Headley, about not being in the district, and I urge you to correct the record on that, because failure to do so would rightly see members conclude that you were misleading this committee, which I know that you would not want to do. So I'm confident that you will, as one of our more statesman-like councillors, seek to correct the record when you are given another opportunity to come back in. And secondly, you have alluded to the fact that something absolutely needs to be done to regenerate the town centre. We absolutely need I've never heard in 9 months what the alternative proposals are, by the way, but nonetheless, you absolutely want to do something for the town centre. And the example that you've given is your regeneration scheme in Craylands. If car park 14 doesn't fall within the purview of the town centre, I'm not entirely sure how Craylands does. So it seems a pretty tenuous link there in what you've put forward. But I will bring Tomasz in to answer the question about resource and capacity that you've asked. Tomasz.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Headley, just to try and lend some assistance here, just to advise that the team and I have been sort of working strenuously behind the scenes to ensure that we have additional capacity to enable the delivery of this master plan regen strategy. We've not only looked within the realms of the existing growth services, particularly within regen, and effectively done a detailed dive into the skill sets and capacity in there. But we've also secured agreement for additional funding to enable additional implementation team, project managers and a coordinator, and even to the point where we've now got a interim project manager supporting the delivery of this until we can recruit fully into that place imminently. So just to sort of give you a little bit of confidence that we're working together on that, and we've got that additional capacity in tune. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomasz. Do I have any other member? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask Christine, how many applications have we got in at the moment? And at what stage are they?
we currently have 2 planning applications. One is Orwell, and that is the Orwell site. That application has been with us for almost 4 weeks now, and that's been out for consultation with our residents. The other application is Eastgate, and that's submitted by Infrared, and that is, we're just about to make that valid, and that will be going out for residents for consultation, probably I would suggest early next week. And then we're working with on a pre-application basis with the old Marks and Spencer site. So that site we're working on we're working alongside a developer with the Carphone Warehouse site, which is that small island site, and obviously we're working with the council on the HIF sites. So that's the one behind that's the post office site, and also we're working with Sempre Homes on Car Park 14. So those are not at application stage, they're all at pre-app stage.
Thank you. Can I just ask, we're talking tonight about guidance notes and approving, in effect, if we do so tonight, that they will be online sometime and they'll be worked on during September and October. I must ask the question, how are these planned applications at the moment, if the guidance notes aren't there, how are these applications being dealt with? And when are they likely to come before a planning committee?
The applications are currently under planning performance agreements, which steps them outside the normal 13-week requirements that we've got set out by central government. So these applications we have set, working with currently the Orwell team, we've set an planning committee date for either December or January December this year or January next year. And obviously the guidance is already there. We've already discussed the guidance in terms of the work we did as part of the master plan, and also we are working with a number of consultants to look at things around public realm and highways. So all that will be built into the applications, but they have been through quite a rigorous set of pre-app discussions already with them. So we are already working on the ambitions and the vision set out in the strategy. We're already working on that as part of the delivery of these applications. So the guidance notes and these applications will fall in line with each other.
I must ask the question, what sort of thing is in these guidance notes? Because we're asking tonight to approve something which just passes it on to someone else, and they're going to be web enabled, so they're going to appear at different times. I understand that over a 15-year period, but there must be some initial ones which I would have thought would have been in the agenda tonight. To know the type of thing we're talking about, what sort of thing we're talking about, guidance on what? Guidance on height of buildings, guidance on design, on cladding, on waste disposal, etc., etc. I think for the public watching, they would need to know more about the type of guidance we're asking the power to be given to the chairman and the chief executive to endorse.
So a lot of the guidance will be around what's already out there. So we'll be within the guidance, we'll be drawing in information around this design guide, around the highway work we're doing. We'll draw their attention to to fire safety regulations. So it will be it'll be trying to draw the attention of the developer what we expect how we expect developments to occur and the quality of them. So we will rely on a lot of what's already adopted, and that's why we want the ability to be able to change these, and they'll be ready, and they'll be able to change as legislation changes and regulations change. Also, we're doing a series of bits of work ourselves around public realm. So again, the public realm element of this and the heritage, we've already got work on heritage done by We Made That, so that will already form part of this. So a lot of the evidence we've already got is already there, and we'll be using this as a way of drawing the developer's attention to what we've already done and bits of work we are doing. So if a developer wants to understand about public realm and heritage, he'll click on that button, and he'll draw him into, first of all, the discussion about the listed buildings in the town centre. Secondly, about how we deal with listed buildings and tall buildings, because there's a CABE document on that already. So we'll point them to that work. We'll point them to our options of how you deal with height in the town centre. So that'll be a way of looking at some design principles around height. So a developer will clearly know what our aspirations are to deal with a height strategy for tall buildings. When it comes to looking at public realm, again, we'll point him to our strategy on public realm. So the developer he or she will know what we expect in terms of public realm, what that has to look like, what the contributions will look like, how it will be spent, the strategy for spending over the short, medium and long term. So the developer will have a clear idea of what our intentions are.
Can I just bring Tomasz in to put a bit more on that before I bring you back in, Councillor Harrison? Tomasz.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to help and clarify, Councillor Harrison, in support of the comments that Christine, Head of Planning, has just mentioned, you'll note in the report that it gives you a little bit more detail in there in terms of the areas and the topic areas that effectively are covering. So, for example, Christine mentioned heritage and public realm. You know, there are elements there that are covering the active frontages, the key views, landmark structures in that respect, and on the public realm, open space, public art, wayfinding and cultural identity. So there is quite a bit of detail in there. We've just given you a summary, but when each of those developers, investors look at that, particularly through the charter that we're supporting and proposing as well, they will be steered down that route that Christine and the team have been suggesting, so that we maintain that quality of design, and they're very clear. And that will be improved and updated as time progresses as well. But it's based on current and proposed guidance notes that will come through the system.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. The reason I asked was to get the explanation which Christine and Tomasz have just given, because now that is on public record that we are doing the job properly. Because I raised it because not everyone will read the agenda of this committee and see what's written in there. They will not take the opportunity in future at the end of the week to look on the website to probably see what we're talking about. But the explanation just given from Christine especially highlights all the things that we as a council are looking at to ensure what comes forward from developers is done properly in accordance with legislation and everything else. And I think it's important. I mean, you probably thought I was going to start stirring something up tonight. I wasn't. My intention was purely to highlight what a good job officers are doing in getting the guidance out, and that Joe Public, who's watching this, will know that we're doing it properly. Thank you.
No, none of us had our hearts in our mouths, Councillor. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Matt, for the presentation. There's lots and lots of stuff to talk about with this, and I don't feel any differently from when we met last time about this. Obviously, I have very, very serious concerns about piling people up in blocks of flats. The one sticking point for me is the consultation. The one sticking point for me is that we're being asked to, to note something and to vote on something based on 683 remarks. And I have serious reservations about that. And I know, the council's trying very hard to dot the I's and do all of the stuff that the council has and just brought up. I understand that. We need to get this right. If we're doing anything at all, we need to get it right. But my issue with it is that, there's a high conversation tone around designs, around capacity, around density, around things like that. And very rarely do we ever, in planning terms, ever talk about the people that these are for, the families that will live there, the children that will attend local schools and grow and hopefully turn into decent citizens and be the future generations of Basildon. So my issue with this is the lack of public engagement. We have a responsibility, almost a duty of care, to take people on a journey with us. And I think it's incumbent on us to really look at the feedback that we've had and to consider whether that is adequate feedback to be progressing at such a pace without really taking the temperature of what the local community says. So that would be my remark at this stage.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Henry. Before I bring officers in on that, I've got Tomasz and Matt who've indicated. I want to be really, really clear about consultation and about the process. We have, as a committee, spoken about this in May. We spoke about it again in July. We should speak about it again today. The consultation that we are doing on the regeneration strategy is to enable the council to have, as Christine alluded to in her previous answer to Councillor Harrison, enable the council to have a bit more control over some of the developments that are coming forward. The 4 planning applications, the 2 that are most advanced, the other 2 that are following, are planning applications on private land. Those developers are perfectly entitled, those landowners are perfectly entitled to bring forward applications as and when they like. What we are seeking to do with this regeneration strategy is to give the council a bit more grip, a bit more control to be able to engage with them. The planning document, the master planning document, will have to hang off of the local plan when the local plan is adopted. So there will be further rounds of consultation there. I think there's this view that consultation has only happened during the COVID pandemic. That is not true. As we saw in Matt's presentation earlier on, there was plenty of consultation that happened pre-Christmas, and there has been consultation that has happened after. We know that the individual planning applications that are coming forward, we've been quite insistent on pre-apps, something I wish the county council had been quite insistent on when it came to their waste plant that they're planning for Pitsea. But we've been insistent that we have pre-apps and that the pre-apps are done with the public, which is what has happened in the webinars. And I think Great Oaks and GS8 was recently in the last week or 2 weeks on that. So the public have had an opportunity to see that. Then they will have a further opportunity in the statutory consultation as part of planning applications as they come forward. What we are saying here in terms of this regeneration strategy is that it will be an evolving picture as we move towards the local plan. So there will be plenty of opportunities for this committee, and I commit we will bring this back regularly to the committee to look at the guiding principles. So yes, there's a bit of delegation, but I'll also ensure that the committee is apprised of this so that we're able to feed in and have engagement there. But I would also just say, if we look at, and I think it, you know, it's not live yet, as Matt was explaining, but I think it is an exceptional bit of work from our officers. You talk about feedback and engagement. You know, look at some councils when it comes to feedback and engagement about difficult things like regeneration, they bury it. And what we're doing here is we're creating that consultation tabs for things like fire safety, high rise, density, all of those different tabs where the public from the end of this week will be able to go in, see the feedback, see what the council is saying on that. We're not hiding. We're not pretending that this isn't difficult, this isn't a controversial thing to do. When the town centre is as bad as Basildon is, it requires major surgery, and that's what we're proposing to do here. But equally, I don't think anyone should overplay the council's arm in some of this. You know, whether you like it or not, your guys' government has spent the last 10 years watering down planning legislation to the point where the council often has its hands tied behind its back when it comes to being able to stop things. Permitted development, we've seen that in our town centre on numerous occasions. I think 19 times across the borough we've seen PD used. We talked about fire safety. You know, just this week, the government has voted against the recommendations of the Grenfell inquiry being adopted into the fire safety bill. You know, we need, all three of our MPs voted against adopting those recommendations. So this is an emerging picture. What will that fire safety bill say? What do we need to update the residents on and the building regs and all of that sort of stuff? So I wouldn't see this as tonight is the line in the sand and then it's over. It's the start of all of this, but the purpose is to give the council at least a little bit of control to be able to influence those planning applications that these developers are bringing forward. So I have to say, you know, from my perspective, I think it's a huge positive, and I think that the way the officers have looked at the consultation responses, looked at the engagement, you know, we've been open and honest. We've run webinars 5 weeks in a row with members, all 42 members. We've run webinars with the developers and councillors. We've done it with the public. I don't think there's ever been more consultation over a strategy, because that's what this is, more consultation over a strategy than what we've done in the last 18 months or so. So, you know, I will respectfully kick back slightly at the idea that this is running at too big a pace and we haven't given sufficient credence to the feedback and the consultation responses we've had. I think we have. But I know that Matt, you wanted to come back and then I'll bring Tomasz in to answer some of Councillor Henry's points. Matt.
Thank you, Chair. It was really just, I think you pretty much covered one of the things I was going to say, which is just to be really clear that this is a framework, this is guidance. So actually each and every one of these developments will come forward with for planning with full consultation that goes with it, as we've already seen with the initial ones. But as you were talking, Councillor Henry, I think we did have this conversation last time. What I was trying to do was find some comparisons actually with similar exercises that have been undertaken in the last few years, and I did have some examples last time. So I was just going to say to the committee that I will dig out those comparisons that I had before and I'll send them around, just because I think it's a case of, you know, is 683 is that good or bad? You know, actually this it's difficult to compare because this is such a unique thing. But if we compare it to some other large scale consultations that have been undertaken, it will give a better view. So I'll dig out some of that and send that round.
Thank you. Tomasz.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Actually, I was just going to echo the same. That's really what I was just going to suggest, because we covered this off in the previous May and July reports, and I'm sure in the July we give some reference to that. It was also, just to echo your point as well, Chair, just to support Councillor Henry and give the reassurance that as we sort of progress this downstream, obviously, as you appreciate, in line with the local plan, we will be providing further opportunities as we sort of progress with this strategy and hopefully take it forward into a more of a policy basis. But just to let you know, this is one of many opportunities of consultation. That's the reassurance I was trying to give you.
Thank you, Tomasz. Councillor Henry, do you have any other supplementaries? No. Okay. Councillor Burton-Sampson.
Thank you very much, Chair. You've pretty much taken the words out of my mouth of many of the things I was going to say, Councillor Callaghan. So thank you for that. I'm glad we're thinking on the same lines. But I think what this report to me demonstrates tonight is that not only are we as an administration listening to the responses of our residents, which is important and has been remiss in the past, and we know it's been remiss in the past in many consultations that have happened and been ignored. We are responding. I know both Councillor Callaghan, myself and my fellow ward councillor as councillor for the town centre are having direct conversations with residents, addressing any of their concerns. And actually, when you spend that time talking to residents and explaining why this has to be the way forward, they very much understand it. And it's that direct engagement that is essential. Now we see here responses to some of the greatest concerns that our residents have put forward, and they are, you know, we're being clear, we're being transparent with our residents. I'm really pleased to see that we are publicly stating the level of affordable housing will be in line with council policy. And to get this up clearly on the record, 31% affordable housing, which the split is 70% social rent. Now that's extremely positive, and that answers many of the questions that our residents have been asking around, well, are these going to be homes that Basildon people are going to need? Well, absolutely they will be, because there's a lot of young people who are struggling to get on the property ladder, and these homes will provide an opportunity for them to finally get on the property ladder. They're not going to be suitable for everybody, but they are a type of home that will be suitable for many people. Now, also, I note the bit around updating the infrastructure issues and updating the infrastructure development plan. And let's just come back to that, because we've got a choice here. We've got a choice to do absolutely nothing, which we can't do, because we know what the result of that will be. We'll see our town centre continue to fall on its knees. Even more so now, during this time when we are in a real worrying economic environment, we are seeing people wanting to invest in our borough. And this strategy helps to give clear direction on that. Now, if we don't, we're going to lose many more businesses. We're going to end up with the ridiculous permitted development scheme put in by the Conservative government taking over our town centre. And does that bring infrastructure? No, it doesn't. You get no Section 106 money. You get no SIL money once we get to have the SIL in place. That would be an absolute disaster for our town centre and for our borough. And we're not willing to let that happen. People want to invest and they need a strategy, and this gives them that strategy. Now, Basildon officers have given their responses, or are about to give their responses, on the key themes. Again, that whole transparency, and I'm really pleased to see that website page that's going to be launched, where residents will be able to go in and read on height, read on fire safety, read on the affordable housing and social housing concerns that they had during the consultation. We also have to recognise as well, and Matt's right, so Matt, thank you for your commentary about we have to compare this to consultations that have taken place in the past. We know how difficult it is to get residents to respond to consultations. It is extremely difficult. So I remember the numbers from last time, and our response level was very comparable to the level of responses we've seen elsewhere. But we have been engaging since last year on this, well before COVID. We've been talking to residents and finding out what their needs are, what their desires are for the town centre. And this master plan isn't just, or the strategy as it currently is, isn't just the imagination of one person. This is on the back of that consultation. Now, what I'm getting quite tired of is hearing people just attacking this, especially on social media, some of our fellow opposition councillors and opposition candidates attacking this. But where's the alternative? What is the alternative? Because at the moment, I'm not seeing one. And if there's no alternative now, because it needs to be now, it's going to be too late. So show us that alternative. It's just not good enough to keep attacking it and have nothing to come back with, because it will be too late. And that will be the death of Basildon Town Centre, which will be a disaster for our residents, a disaster for the future of this borough. So I thank officers for their work on these responses, tackling them head on for our residents. And I look forward to this all moving forward now, and this strategy being in place to give that clear direction to developers as they come forward, because they are coming forward and they will keep coming forward with their proposals, so that we get a cohesive town centre that our residents deserve, addressing their needs, addressing their future needs, and giving our borough something that we can be proud of. That's all I had to say. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burton-Sampson. I just also add as well from today, I spent just over 2 hours on a public art tour across the town centre with various members of the community, looking at the different murals and looking at the different public art that exists in various locations. And obviously we know about the water fountain that doesn't have any water, etc., etc. And it was a great tour. So my thanks to Vin Harrop and the gang for organising that. I'm looking forward to the letters in the Echo, and also looking forward to seeing how we can ensure that public art is very much part of not just Basildon Town Centre's future, but in some cases, perhaps in our parks, perhaps in some of the other public spaces as well. So that was a very worthwhile exercise. So thank you to those guys for organising that today. And I think it highlights that this regeneration strategy is greater as a whole than the sum of its parts. It is not just about residential or office blocks. It is also about that leisure, culture, retail, food and beverage, community offer as well, which we are seeking to bring forward in this. So thank you to them. I have no other councillors indicating. Oh, I have Councillor Mackenzie, then Councillor Harrison. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yes, sorry, I raised my hand on the message board.
Sorry, if people can wave at me because I'm not looking at the participants.
I think I've raised my concerns about this before, so I'm not going to go over what I've already said in previous meetings. I think if it wasn't for the high rise, I would be much more supportive of this plan. That's the particular bugbear for me, with particularly the high density. But to just seek some clarification points. Earlier in the slide, it mentioned 5,000 new jobs. Is that net? So will there be any, say, job losses where retail units have to go and shops have to shut down? What plan is there to support existing businesses in the town centre so they can continue trading? It may be they have to move units. Will there be any financial assistance for them? And also, this might be coming in a later agenda, so just say, and I'll wait for the answer if it is, on COVID-19. And what impact is that having in terms of the housing market and what people want? Is there a move away from flats to larger premises, more rural locations with more space? Because I know that during the lockdown, a lot of people were stuck in high-rise developments, not much space, no balconies, couldn't go, found it difficult to go outside, could only go for a walk 1 hour a day. And now there seems to be a lot of people trying to move away from that after experience that and trying to find somewhere with a bit more space.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Your last of your 3 points we'll cover in the COVID assessment later on. In terms of your looking at jobs and looking at existing support, Tim from Cushman and Wakefield, I'm going to come to you on the economic assessment now. Tim.
Thanks, Chair. So, yeah, it's a good question. So the jobs have been calculated on the basis of using standard employment density assumptions that the Homes and Communities Agency produced a few years ago. They are based on the total amount of gross floor space that's shown in the regeneration framework. So as you rightly say, where we lose any retail floor space, that will come off that. The issue is, of course, that much of that retail floor space isn't supporting any jobs at the moment because much of it's vacant. So that will reduce to become a net figure. What will be added to it, though, which will make it go up again, which it excludes at the moment, is the amount of jobs that are created through construction and the amount of jobs that are created by indirect effects of greater spend from having more people in the town centre, spending money supporting jobs in shops, leisure facilities, offices, etc. So it will change. It's an estimate at the moment, and it is a gross figure on that basis.
Thank you, Tim.
What about the support for existing businesses if they need to move or relocate?
So I think that's more of a question for the administration. So let me just say on the issue of the construction jobs that Tim has alluded to there, I'm going to be bringing forward to our next meeting as part of the work programme, looking at a charter that we can look to use for all of our builders, contractors, when it comes to both this town centre, but also our aspirations for Wickford and Pitsea and other areas as well. And that will look at local trades and ensuring that the supply chain remains local so that we get more of our local guys building Basildon and bringing that forward. In terms of the financial support, we need to explore that. That's a good idea. Obviously, lots of these private developers will be seeking VP at the moment, vacant possession, and they'll be looking to see what deals they can do with other units around the town centre. And in fact, I know that conversation is taking place actively, but at the moment, no one has approached the council for financial support in that regard. But certainly as we come in the autumn to set the budget, it is something that perhaps we want to consider as a committee. So at that stage, I think we should explore that. So that's something for us to look at, and Tom Ash's team, when they are setting budgets, perhaps need to factor that into their thinking. So thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, for that. If there are no further questions from you in terms of supplementaries, I will hand over to Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. When the Town Centre Revival Committee first met, we discussed Basildon Town Centre, and I said then, and I stick by it, the Basildon Town Centre, if nothing is done, it will die on its feet, and something needs to be done. We're now working along the progress to see something happen. At this point in time, all we've seen is CGIs, mainly from the prospective developers who will in time submit planning applications. When the planning applications come in, we need a planning committee that has not predetermined issues. That is why I've tried not, I haven't commented at all about heights of buildings or anything like that. I've mentioned waste disposal once, how we would do that at one particular webinar. It's matters for the planning committee. Now, I wish we'd take the politics out of this. I really do, from both sides, because Basildon Town Centre needs something to be done to it. Private developers are bringing forward planning applications, which they could do in any case, whether this council worked with them or not. At the moment, the council is working with them. At some stage, it may well evaporate. I don't know. I don't think it will. But ultimately, it's going to be decisions for the planning committee to decide whether these developments go ahead, as you've seen on CGIs, or not, whether they change as discussions take place. They could be quite different from the CGIs you've seen, because I know in the past from Wickford, I've seen CGIs when what's come forward has been nothing like what the CGIs were. So I think we've got to just step back a bit, leave it to the officers, the planners to deal with the applications, and then the planning committee will deal with the applications. I feel it's going on a political divide, and it shouldn't be at this stage, because then it starts hinting at predetermination, what people are saying publicly straight away. And I think that is wrong, and that is a bad message to send out to the public.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I have no, I'll just check this thing. I have no other members who are indicating that they wish to speak. So the recommendations 1 to 3 are on the face of the report. Can I ask all members to unmute themselves, please? So we will go round and take them on block. So Councillor Harrison, how do you vote?
In favour.
Councillor Burton-Sampson?
In favour.
Councillor Headley?
Against.
Councillor Henry?
Against.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Against.
And on my casting vote, I vote in favour. So the recommendations are carried. Thank you to our officers and particularly Matt there for that presentation and for all of the work that has gone into responding to that public consultation. That's a good result for the council there, and ultimately it will be a good result for the town centre and Basildon as well. The next agenda item 5, are the town centres updates. And the town centre updates, as we've done in previous committees, will go and do a bit of a run through of the various town centres that we have. Clearly, we've got some schemes that are more advanced than others, and we heard at our last committee about Langdon in particular. And this time I will hand back over. Everyone keeps turning their screens off and then it all moves around. I can't see who we've got. Matt, are you still? You're still.
I'm here.
Let's get the presentation, share our screen, get the presentation up, and we'll run through this. This, and then at the end, I'll take questions on block from members.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll share my screen again. Okay, thank you. We will start by looking at Basildon Town Centre. So a quick update on East Square. Obviously very demonstrable good progress has continued, with the steel frame now complete and the structure forming part of the skyline. Concrete is being poured to form the floors, and construction of the roof and the walls is set to commence shortly. So some really good progress has been made. A topping out event has been scheduled to take place on the 13th of October. And tied in with that, just to say there's some really good ongoing liaison and engagement with Empire, and their chief executive will be attending that topping out ceremony on the 13th. Just on the commercial units, a local agent is actively marketing that now. I think we mentioned that before. And it's starting to generate interest. Obviously, that was an area that was difficult to move forward in the lockdown, but we're now back on that, actively marketing those F&B units. So construction remains on target for summer 2021 completion, and then a handover to Empire for the fit out following that. Moving on to Great Oaks Quarter site. So this is the council's HIF funded housing infrastructure funding project. That, just so you remember, it includes Car Park 1, the Great Oaks, Car Park 2 and Car Park 12, and the post office site, which is next to the cinema. So the initial architectural and capacity work has gone well. That's now complete, and we're at the costing and feasibility stage. So there's some really quite detailed exercises that are going on with the QSs at the moment. That may well lead to some fine tuning of the approach. So we will go back to the architects. We might make some changes in relation to that. Ultimately, what we need is a project that is financially viable to move forward. Just also so you know that discussions are ongoing BTCM in relation to the parking re-provision and the requirements and the enhancements to car park 1, which I've talked about previously. So that will enable the other car park sites to be unlocked for the development. And just to very briefly mention youth zones, so feasibility work is being undertaken to ensure a suitable site for this facility is found, which meets the requirements of the provider on side and the council. This has previously gone to other council committees. I can't remember exactly which one it's gone to, but it's a proposal that is being proposed by onside, and we are at the early stages in terms of where that might be located. Quick update on the college. Target handover expected for late 2020. The South Essex College to confirm the date for official opening, which is likely to be early next year. And it's, as you can see by walking past it, there's some really interesting elevations coming to life now, which is great. We're currently agreeing the treatment of the external areas and the landscaping. What we want to make sure is that they have a finished building, obviously, for when they open, but we also want to make sure that the landscaping there doesn't actually affect, negate anything that we want to do in future in relation to the master plan objectives and aspirations. So there's just a little bit of work that we're doing in relation to that. Just to also flag up that we've got, there's discussions at the moment with ambulance service in terms of locating a new hub potentially around the area of the town centre. So that's just to say that's an early feasibility stage as well, and reports will be prepared for P&R in due course when that moves forward. Any other matters in Basildon Town Centre? So work is obviously, well, actually Christine has covered this first one really. Work is progressing in relation to the 4 major planning applications in the town centre. So just to reiterate, Market Square and Eastgate have now been submitted. Just to say, some key town centre potential interventions are being tracked and negotiations at early stages. This is what the Regen team are constantly doing. More information will be forthcoming at the appropriate time as those opportunities come to light. And just a quick update on the Hospital Trust. So they will now be taking a temporary unit in Eastgate for phlebotomy services, which is good news in terms of footfall into the Eastgate Centre. And also they are looking for outpatient space. So good liaison with them going on at the moment. Moving on to Wickford, main car park. So there is an opportunity there to bring forward a comprehensive development with a new anchor food store, improved parking, residential and improved public realm. And that what you can see on the right is just the architect's view of how that might look. We're in discussions with adjoining landowners where the co-op site currently is, and other interested parties to maximise the opportunities for this site. So we're exploring opportunities in relation to JVs, potential acquisitions. We just want to make sure that what we do is a holistic view in relation to that location. It's the best thing for Wickford there. So BPTW are our architects on that. They've been working hard on that, developing the options for the main car park. That's now just moving into the costing phase as well. So very quickly on the community centre and the library, obviously the new community centre is up and running. So the old community centre is now vacant. Vacant possession has been received, and that's LTP. There has been a delay in building a new library due to COVID, obviously, but that is now back on site, and demolition can't be completed on the old community centre until the library is moved, as they're obviously co-joined buildings. Gibraltar Walk, P&R committee on the 22nd of July provided approval to enable the formal marketing stage prior to disposal to commence. Officers are currently checking the legal route to confirm the procurement route before the formal marketing commences, aiming for the end of the month or very beginning of next month, and the marketing material is currently being prepared. Southern end of market site, so this is the Wetherspoons site. Obviously we've talked about this, I think every TCR about the fact that Wetherspoons have obviously been locked down, and then they've been getting themselves back up and running. So this one went onto the back burner, but apparently there is a board meeting today. So we're waiting for the decision on that in relation to moving forward with this site. So hopefully we'll have some resolution and some news on that imminently. Moving on to Pitsea, the bingo hall. Again, I think we talked about it last time, so I won't go into it in much detail. But but discussions are ongoing with the owners. There are viability concerns. I said this last time. It's true. The pandemic hasn't helped this, but regeneration and planning are helping the owners to explore all avenues. So actually, we're trying to work with them. So we can understand, so that they can understand the potential of the site, actually, which is an important move. So that's happening now. We've got various meetings in the diary with the owners to see what we can do here. However, it is difficult in viability terms. So remedial improvements have been undertaken as part of the Section 215 notices, and planning enforcement is due to inspect the works on that later this month. And then the Pitsea Phase 2, so the position with London and Cambridge remains unchanged, and proposals for Phase 2 are being reviewed. And again, there are viability issues around this at the moment. So what we will be doing, and I think I did mention this last time as well, is officers will be looking at take a wider view about what we might be able to do on our land. So that is, we're undertaking that review at the moment. Where might a potential red line go around what we can do? Obviously, that doesn't exclude London and Cambridge, but what we want to do is be able to potentially move forward, obviously subject to potential viability issues. So that will move forward, but it might not be quite in the way that we previously thought, but we've got to just evolve and change as we move forward. And then other matters in relation to Pitsea, just to say, new planting to be installed throughout the town centre has been approved by the Pitsea Town Centre Working Group, and also the clock on Pembroke House is due to be repaired through the funding from the working group as well. And then Leamington Town Centre, I won't say much on this because obviously Jack did a whole thing on it last time, but Swan, like it was saying Swan have resumed full construction on site. The Lidl site is being prepared with work to start in early 21 to build the store. So the landmark development and delivery of the first 14 homes is now complete, and we've heard from Swan and they have a number of exchanges actually already on those. So that's really good news, and families will be taking up those homes soon. So and then handover of the first units is scheduled to take place this month. So with regard to the options of the public realm, a topographical and tree survey has been completed and results will inform the emerging design, and they're being reviewed by the architect. So I think that takes me to the end of the whistle stop tour, and happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Matt. Let's open this up. I'm seeing a few members now who've turned their screens off, so if they could turn their screen back on so I can see them. Councillor Mackenzie. Muted.
Sorry, I'm off mute now. On Basingstoke Town Centre, there's current works going on in terms of changing the road system. How long is that going to go on for? Because I have noticed going through there a few times that it is causing some traffic problems. Also, with the bingo hall, I don't hold up much hope you're going to get much done with that particular owner. I think this is someone who doesn't have any morals and just wants to get loads of money out of the site and isn't going to go forward with a modest plan which may make him a small amount of money. He's going to hold up until someone lets him build, I don't know, 20-story block of flats there or something. This person has no moral fibre who owns it, and I don't think the council's going to get anywhere working with him. I've had recent reports of rats in the building again. I have reported that council and they are taking action, but I currently don't hold up much hope for that particular site. I welcome the repairing of the clock. It's been down for too long in the town centre. I know my ward colleague Craig has been pushing for that to be repaired, and I know going forward, I believe while the council is paying for it, it's going to be the maintenance and upkeep will be privately funded in future, I understand. Also, I hear the local businesses are looking to get a Christmas tree in Pitsea this year, which I also welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Just on the issue of the bingo hall, myself and officers met with the owner just last week on this, and we were very firm in what needs to happen and how we take this forward. I think there had been previous crossed wires in terms of viabilities and what the council was looking for, so we were able to clarify that position with the owner, and obviously, as you say, the onus now is on him to come back to the council with something that is perhaps more sensible and more realistic. And then, of course, as we've done in other parts of the borough, we would look at that through the strategic asset acquisition strategy framework that the council adopted in August last year. Do we have any other member Councillor Henry?
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks once again, Matt, for another presentation. Do you have any update at all on the health centre situation? Has there been any further news on progression of that site?
You're talking about Langdon Park, I assume?
Langdon Health Centre, yeah.
Yeah. Matt, have we heard anything since Jack's presentation?
I don't know is the honest answer. We will find out and we'll come back to you on that one if that's okay. And I'm just looking at Caroline, who is on the call, to see if she knows any more about the situation in relation to that. But if not, we will come back to you, Councillor Henry, on that once we found out.
Great, thank you.
And likewise, while I'm on, just to pick up Councillor Mackenzie's point about highways, again, I can't answer the timescale in relation to that, but I'll find out from the team. I know that Gary's been dealing with that, so I'll check with him and we'll come back to you in relation to how long those works are due to continue for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can we make sure that we circulate copies of both answers to all members of the committee?
Yeah.
Those issues. And perhaps in terms of, I know Councillor Harrison has been talking about Wickford at Christmas. It might be that we want to look at that as well as part of the work programme, but we can get into that. Councillor Harrison, you've indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just comment on the thing on Wickford, which isn't there? It must be almost 4.5 years ago now. We met with the NHS to discuss the future of the existing Wickford Health Centre building. It disappeared off of agenda items, hasn't appeared since. I personally have been trying to get in touch with the NHS, the people I was speaking to previously between 2015, 2016. It needs to come back onto an agenda somewhere because it was part of the regeneration phase 2 in 2016. And my apologies for not bringing it up. I've got to blame Councillor Henry for mentioning the Langdon one that flashed the memory in my mind. And I thought it hasn't appeared since, so perhaps it should. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Are there any other members who wish to come in at this point? Okay, thank you, Matt, for your presentation. We'll do that again next time around as well. The next item is a COVID-19 impact assessment. We've obviously had earlier on in our discussions from Councillor Mackenzie a question around its impact, COVID's impact rather, on the residential market, which we need to pick up as part of this. But Tomasz, more generally on the town centres across our borough and COVID, I'll hand to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give a little bit of a perspective, and as members will be aware, a lot of this reporting has been going through the main External Affairs Committee and update reports thereof, and I think the recent minutes are still being prepared, but I think the previous ones from July and May are online. But just to give you a little bit of an update on the town centres, you'll be aware we appointed a High Street Business Relationship Officer. We recruited on, I think, around about the 20th of July to help, particularly with the local retailers thereof, and combined with the my fellow AD for Community Services, we appointed, and we have been engaging with the Billericay and Wickford High Street businesses. The business relation officers liaised with them. There's been multiple channels that they've engaged with in terms of Zoom call meetings and email exchanges and phone calls, as well as regular personal engagement. And there's been lots of site visits and discussions, obviously, to support the campaign of Shop Local and Shop Safe. The council is also looking at temporary pedestrianisation of Wickford High Street to try and make that a safer and more enjoyable and COVID safe environment, particularly on the Saturday. And that discussion has been engaging with the county to lobby highways in particular to enable that to come forward. And we're currently working on a solution on that and hoping to implement that in the near future. In the meantime, we've also been in discussions with the National Market Traders Federation, who are the industry reps for all market traders. And they pleasingly have confirmed that we have been compliant with national guidelines and their members are satisfied. So they've been very complimentary of BBC officers in that respect, which is pleasing to note. We're also progressing, and subject to the signing of a grant application, we're trying to look at a wider rollout of the Click and Collect platform members may be aware of. It's been successful in a number of our centres in particular, and we are looking to roll that out within Wickford in particular. It's a bit of early days for us, but we are wanting to sort of progress that. We've also been initiating a 13-week bespoke digital marketing campaign across the towns, and these have been delivered by NewsQuest, which comes to an end next week. And the advertising campaign is being promoting Wickford High Street in particular. So this will enable visitors who perhaps are a bit concerned about and apprehensive about shopping to be able to utilise this facility. And one of the things that we're trying to do is see whether or not we can utilise that to enable direct appointments, such as arranging for haircuts, etc. But all of this is to promote and encourage not only the retailers but also the public with the COVID safety measures, to ensure that we do get more activity in the town centre. So those were just some very broad highlights, Chair, just to give a flavour of the work that we've been doing, particularly with that new access to grant funding from government.
Thank you, Tomasz. Just also add on that, I know it's pretty fresh, having just come out today, but I did speak to the Council's Environmental Health Service Manager earlier on, Rachel Glover, in relation to the Prime Minister's announcements, and she's advised that although we won't have the full details on the announcements until the weekend, that there is, for example, a call for COVID marshals, and I know we've had them on our high streets previously, and that there was a mixed response, but nonetheless we did have those on the high street, and now the government is looking to mandate that. They have talked also about increasing enforcement powers for councils, and we need to clarify what that means in relation to our town centres, whether that is enforcing masks, etc., etc. We don't yet know. So once Rachel has got to grips with that, I'm sure she'll provide that for members who are looking for it, because that will impact on our high streets and on our town centres. In terms of the impact on the housing market, I don't think that is yet known. fully, and I think that that will emerge as part of the planning applications that are coming forward, and when they are at the planning committee, as was previously said, then they'll need to look into that and to see what the latest thinking and guidance from the government is at that time. But as ever with housing, demand is far outstripping supply for just about every tenure. And I think it was just this week that Halifax released their statistics that showed that house prices for first-time buyers have risen by 69%. And the average age of a first-time buyer now is 31. And I think, certainly from our perspective in Basildon, we are looking at how we can help people to get on the housing ladder quicker, and whether it's a phrase that's gone out of fashion, hasn't it? Starter home. Most people now having to buy 3 or 4 bedroom homes right off the bat, when actually some of these flats that we're potentially looking at as part of this regeneration of the town centre might be more applicable for people in their 20s to get them on the ladder quicker. And that's a part of our thinking as well, because frankly, there hasn't been accommodation built for people in their mid to late 20s that is applicable for 20, 30 years in this borough. But as that evolves, we will obviously discuss and debate that as a committee. Thomas, you are wanting to come back in.
Yes, just to help on that, I'm sure members are aware from news, but obviously the government is keen to support the starter market. In particular, as we're aware, there is that incentivisation of reduced stamp duty, and obviously targeting the first starter home market. And I think any schemes coming forward, certainly in the borough, may not be through the advent of the master plan, because those schemes will take probably a period well beyond that. But at least with existing projects that we're bringing through, certainly through SEMPRA, there will be a lot of benefits there for local residents in the borough. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Councillor Burton-Sampson.
Yeah, Chair, just a very brief question, if I may, for Thomas. Are we keeping track? And I know this is a sad situation that I'm about to mention, but we're losing many businesses at the moment due to the economic impacts of COVID. Are we keeping track of which businesses we're losing from the town centre? What's the picture? Well, all our town centres across the whole borough, and what's that picture currently looking like? So do we know how many businesses we've lost since the pandemic across each town centre?
If I may, Chair, I'm sorry, Councillor, I don't have those details immediately to hand, but I'll be able to sort of come back to you on that, and for all members of this committee, and see what information I can acquire. One of the problems that we're experiencing is that not all the data is readily available, because there are different elements there, different, see, for example, DWP that would keep various information, certain business rates, which we may be able to check as to who's paying and is not paying. So I'd need to research and check against a number of sources, and I'll come back to you, if I may, via the chat.
Okay, thank you. All right, members, there are no further indications on this, so we go to agenda item 7, which is the work programme. And members have had an opportunity to look at this for the 10th of November. As I mentioned earlier on, I would like us to consider at that committee the charter that we spoke about earlier on, and looking at that Basildon First approach to development. And so if we could put a Basildon First development item on the 10th of November agenda, that would be welcome. I would also add, as we move into January, we do need to, in fact, actually in November, we also do need to consider any budget implications for this committee as well. So we should add that. And obviously we've heard Councillor Mackenzie's suggestions or questions tonight around financial support. So we do need to look at that as part of this. I know we're not a committee that authorises much money, but it is worth looking at. And then into January, I think we should also include clearly in there a report which is an update on any changes to those guiding principles that we have passed tonight as part of this strategy. So if we bring that back in January, then that will give members a bit of a feel for it, and we should have probably by that point, I think, had a planning application determined one way or the other. So we'll see how they're being applied and if they need to be strengthened. So they're the two I have. I don't know if any other member has any additions that they want to make. No, we are asked to endorse, consider and endorse, so we do need to take a vote. So can I ask members to take themselves off mute, and then I will come to you, Councillor Harrison.
Agreed.
Councillor Burton-Sampson.
For.
Councillor Headley.
Agreed.
Councillor Henry.
Agreed.
Councillor Mackenzie.
For.
And I vote in favour. Thank you, members. Thank you, officers. Thank you to our guests for joining us this evening to provide their support. And we will see each other again at this committee on the 10th of November. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.